So even after a huge win against the Indiana Pacers in our last game where we beat them 129 to 124, we still need them to lose this game and for the Sixers to win their next game. I'm not 100% sure whether these two teams are playing each other. I don't think they are. But man, that would be an exciting game if they were. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 19 of the Louisville Badgers. And while there are several teams left that still have games to play, including us, the one that we're most interested in is the Indiana Pacers game and whether or not they lose that game. If they lose, there's still no guarantee that they're out of the playoffs. But, us beating them the other night was definitely a big step in the right direction towards getting that pick into the lottery. However, today, we're not only going to find out where that Pacers pick is going to be, but also where our top first-round pick is going to end up as we make our way into the offseason and into the draft lottery as we simulate through the rest of the regular season here in 2020. But first, I want to give you guys a quick update on what I decided to do for the hashtag add player prospects for the 2020 draft class. So as I told you guys in the last episode, you guys had the option to reclassify your player, especially if it was a point guard or a shooting guard, to the 2021 draft class. A lot of you guys opted to do that. And some of you guys also told me that you wanted to stay in the 2020 class. But here's what we're going to do. Those of you guys who asked to be reclassified to 2021, I went ahead and did that. And those of you who asked to stay in 2020, I did that as well. So I was able to narrow down the hashtag add player prospects to about 15 players for this draft, which was about perfect because we had about 45 to 50 real-life player prospects that were part of this draft class as well. So with 64 picks to be made in the 2020 draft, you do the math, everything should work out perfectly. Now, just to keep things interesting, should one of your hashtag add players that's included in this 2020 draft not actually get drafted by an NBA team, I will reclassify your player to the 2021 draft. Because like I said before, if you become an undrafted free agent, that becomes tough. Your path to the NBA becomes a lot more difficult at that point. If, however, you become an undrafted free agent and that is the type of player that you created and you prefer that, just let me know if you're okay with that. I will let you guys know which players become undrafted free agents, if any. And by default, I will reclassify them to the 2021 draft class unless it's your player and you tell me otherwise. And lastly on this topic, a lot of people have brought up to me recently how there are a lot of hashtag add players in each draft classes, and some of that makes it a little bit unrealistic. So in the future, while I do want to make sure I get as many of you guys in there as possible, I am going to be a little more selective about which players I put into which draft classes. I'm also going to take player positions into account when I make those decisions as well. That way it just makes it a lot easier across the board and we don't have 20 point guards sitting in the draft not being drafted. So now that we got that out of the way, it is now time to simulate this last game of the season, and we'll see whether or not it's the Pacers or the Philadelphia 76ers that make that last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Of course, we are rooting for the Sixers. After taking a look at the standings, we know that the Sixers must hold the tiebreaker, and they would need to win their game and the Pacers to lose their game in order to get in. So we do need the stars to align for us a little bit here in order for us to get that second lottery pick, but I'm feeling hopeful, and, fingers crossed here. So here we go. Going to simulate through the 16th. And that's going to bring us straight to the end of the season. We'll take a look at the awards before we take a look at whether or not the Pacers won or lost their game and whether or not the Sixers won or lost theirs. So Giannis Antetokounmpo ends up as the league MVP with 28.3 points per game, 11.4 rebounds and 6.1 assists, a steal and a half and a block and a half. He might be Defensive Player of the Year as well, but man, what a heck of a season for Giannis. Look at this. Oh my goodness. Ja Morant edges Jarrett Culver for Rookie of the Year. Man, that is... And you guys see, I swear to you, I just scrolled right over to this. I did not do any overriding or anything like that. I wish there was a way I could disable that. Because I don't even want there to be the ability to override it. I want this to be realistic. The only thing we've ever overridden was the Greg Popovich retirement, and that was because that just simply wasn't realistic. We know he's not going to retire. So, Ja Morant, Rookie of the Year, boys. all the hard work paid off. 17.4 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, which I suspect will be up in, the following seasons. 7.2 assists to go along with 1.7 steals per game. He shot 43, almost 44% from the field, 35% from three, and look at that free throw percentage at 83%. What a year for Ja Morant. Jarrett Culver, man, got to give him props. You got to give him a lot of credit for what he did this season. He scored just shy of 20 points per game. He didn't do a whole lot else, though, and as you can see, Ja Morant was up there in the assist totals, up there in the steal totals. I'm pretty sure that's why he edged out Jarrett Culver, even though when we were looking at the award races for most of the season, it showed Jarrett Culver first in that spot. Now, I don't know if that was because he had the highest point per game total or what, and if that's what it was going based off at the time, but I am seriously hype that our boy Ja won the Rookie of the Year. When I scrolled over and saw a Badgers logo pop up, I'm like, wait, what is this now? And I gotta tell you, that's awesome, man. That's really, really, really cool. Let's move on. Larry Nance Jr. wins Sixth Man of the Year on the Cleveland Cavaliers. 10 points, almost 10 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists, a steal and a half, and a block. Shot almost 55% from the field. Really good year for him. Giannis, Defensive Player of the Year, just as I suspected. You really can't argue with that a whole lot. A steal and a half and a block and a half, and he is just a force defensively, just all the way around. He affects the game on both sides of the floor in ways that you can't even imagine. He single-handedly makes the Bucks very, very hard to beat. Most Improved Player, no surprises here. He was in the running for this almost all season. Julius Randle, 20 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 3.7 assists. He had a very good year defensively, and he did not shoot bad at all from the three-point. Shot very well from the field at 57% and then 32% from three. So a very, very good year for Mr. Julius Randle. And then the Coach of the Year, this one doesn't surprise me a whole lot. Kenny Atkinson's Nets have been just incredible. They've been out of this world this season. Pretty sure they had one of the best records, if not the best record in the NBA this year. I don't think we had a 60-win team in the NBA this season. Kenny Atkinson and the Brooklyn Nets deserve everything they get here. I hope that they make it pretty deep in the playoffs. That would be really cool to see. So that is it for the award races. We can advance on past that. And that brings us to the All-NBA team. So you got All-NBA first, Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, Giannis, LeBron, and Nikola Jokic. All-NBA second, Westbrook, Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, and Nikola Vucevic. And then All-NBA third team, D'Angelo Russell. He probably deserved to be second team, but it's hard to argue with Russell Westbrook. Then you got Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Porzingis, and Cousins. All-defensive first, Oladipo, Westbrook, Giannis, Anthony Davis, and Rudy Gobert. Defensive second, Chris Paul, John Wall, Kawhi Leonard, Draymond, Hassan Whiteside. And then your all-rookie first team, your boy Ja Morant at the top of the list there. Then you got Jarrett Culver, very deserving, Cam Reddish, Zion Williamson, and RJ Barrett. All-rookie second, Sekou Doumbouya, Nasir Little, Terrence Romeo, which is one of our hashtag ad players, Naz Reid, and Romeo Langford. And now that brings us to the NBA playoffs, and this season we are going to simulate this round by round just to make it a little bit quicker. Obviously, we're not in the playoffs, so we don't have any real rooted interests here. And the first thing that you're going to notice in the top right of your screen is that first round series with the Brooklyn Nets. They are, in fact, playing against the Indiana Pacers, so the Pacers must have won their game. Either that or the Sixers lost their game. Either way, that Pacers pick will not be a lottery pick, but I'm still happy to have it nonetheless. However, in the East, I am looking at teams like the Nets and the Knicks. I'm really interested to see how those teams do. You also got this first round series here between the Bucks and the Raptors. That's going to be a very, very interesting series. So let's go ahead and get on with it. Simulate the current round. Alrighty, so over in the West, Houston beats Phoenix 4-1. The San Antonio Spurs edge the Golden State Warriors, a very decimated Golden State Warriors team who we know didn't have Chris Middleton for the entire season. We know Steph Curry was injured for at least the first few games of this first round of the playoffs and maybe injured for the entire thing. I'm not 100% sure. But San Antonio takes that one in 6 games. The Wolves beat the Nuggets in 7, and the Lakers sweep the New Orleans Pelicans. Over here in the East, the two teams that we were keeping an eye on, the Nets and the Knicks, are going to be playing each other in a conference semifinal. You see the Celtics with a first-round exit. That cannot be good for the morale of that team. And then the other half of the bracket in the East, you got the 6th-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers versus the 7th-seeded Toronto Raptors in the conference semifinals as well. So now we're going to go ahead and simulate on through the second round here. Over here in the West, we got the Houston Rockets sweeping the San Antonio Spurs. Then it's the Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, beating them in 6. The Nets versus Knicks series was obviously an epic one as they went to 7 games, but the Knicks able to slip past the Nets in that series. And then in the Toronto and Cleveland series, it looks like Toronto took that one in 6 games. So your conference finals are the Rockets versus the Lakers and the Knicks versus the Raptors. So let's go ahead and simulate through the conference finals and see what happens. And there you have it, boys. The Houston Rockets beat the LA Lakers in 6 games in the Western Conference Finals, and in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Toronto Raptors, who went up 3-0 in this series at one point, the Knicks came back and made it very, very interesting, but the Raptors take that one in 7. So your 2020 NBA Finals, the Toronto Raptors versus the Houston Rockets. This might not be that far off of what might happen in real life next season. So here we go, the NBA Finals. Time to see who's taking home that Larry O'Brien in 2020. And the Toronto Raptors, after going down 2-0 in the series, come back and win it in 6, winning 4 games in a row. The Raptors are NBA champions in our world. As I'm sure you guys will remember, they went up against the Philadelphia 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals last season in our series here and lost to them in, I believe, 7 games, and then the Sixers went on to play the Golden State Warriors in the finals and lost to the Warriors. But this season, the Toronto Raptors came up big and were able to bring it all the way home. And of course, your 2020 Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard, with 25.3 points per game, 7 rebounds, almost 3 assists, 2 steals and almost a block per game. Just one heck of a series for Kawhi, but this is what we've come to expect from him at this point. So 2020 in our world, looking a lot like 2019 in the real world. So there you have one more look at the playoff bracket and how everything played out. And just in case you guys were wondering, down in the bottom right there, we did in fact lose our last game of the season against the Detroit Pistons. Let's go back and take a quick look at how that game played out. So we lost it 98-84. Not a very high scoring game here. Blake Griffin put up 30, Mike Conley put up 21. On our side, it was Jaren Jackson, John Morant, and Keldon Johnson doing most of the scoring, and I really believe that these 3 are the future big 3 of this team. But let's see how everything shapes up. But now it is time to move on to the 2020 offseason, and after a season full of tanking, this is a very, very welcome offseason indeed. So we're going to start off first with player retirements. Looks like Zach Randolph is going to retire, Tyson Chandler, Kyle Korver, Trevor Ariza, J.R. Smith, Devin Harris, Tony Allen, Thabo Sefolosha, Jameer Nelson, Raymond Felton, Corey Brewer, who was a Badger at one point actually. And then after this, I'll just scroll through these guys real quick. So next up, you got staff retirement, and the only retiree is going to be Chris James, 24 years in the league, Trailblazers assistant coach, so we can move on past that. Now the league meetings, and we'll take a look through some of these rule changes. Automatic points will now be granted on shooting fouls, not a chance. Reduce the rookie wage scale such that first-round picks receive reduced contracts, also not a chance. Eliminate the goaltending rule, absolutely not. Eliminate the foul-out rule, players will no longer foul out, absolutely not. Opposing teams will enter the bonus after 3 team fouls have been committed in an overtime period. I guess no on that one. I mean, it was rejected by them naturally, but that's one that I could see getting on board with. But I mean, you know, it wasn't approved by them anyway, and I'm not going to override it. So no to everything here. Let's move on. Now that brings us to the league realignment, and the beauty of this is that we don't have to do anything at all. The Vancouver Grizzlies and the Seattle Supersonics are already in the Northwest, exactly where they belong. They're in the Western Conference. For whatever reason, the Memphis Grizzlies were already in the West, even though I'm pretty sure they belonged in the East. But it works out for us because now they're in Vancouver and they belong in the Western Conference anyway, so we don't have to do anything at all with the league realignment. That now brings us to one of the most important parts, if not the most important part of our off season, and that is the draft lottery, because this is going to dictate where we pick in the NBA draft. So it is the only part of our off season for the most part that is left up to chance. Of course, some of the free agency stuff is left up to chance as well, because we got to, rely on guys making their own decisions and rely on other teams not matching if we are going after a restricted free agent and whatnot. However, the draft lottery is the only part that is left completely up to the draft gods, so to speak. Now, real quickly, before we jump into this, I do want to let you know what the ramifications of this draft lottery are going to be, okay, and which players or player is or is not going to be available. So, the Jalen Green situation, you guys were almost completely split down the middle on this, okay, because the votes, I think, were somewhere around 60-40. However, the comments were almost all for him to go to the 2021 draft class. Most of you guys thought that that was going to be the most realistic. So between the voting being slightly in favor of him being in the 2020 draft class and all of the comments being mostly in favor of him being in the 2021 draft class, I figured I would make the decision on my own, since there was really no clear winner in one direction or the other between 2020 and 2021. I'm going to go the realistic route and say that we probably wouldn't be getting rid of the one and done rule this season anyway, so we're going to go ahead and make sure that he stays classified for the 2021 draft class. And I think that most of you guys will agree that that's probably the most realistic outcome. And while I 100% agree with the fact that 2020 would be the most interesting outcome, we're going to go the realistic route on this one. So anyway, enough talking. It's time to hop in to the draft lottery. And here we go. It is time for the 2020 draft lottery. I'm going to bring you guys through it with me from start to finish. No cuts in between or any of that stuff. So as you guys can see, here are the lottery odds. I'm not going to go down the entire list of them all, but as you guys can clearly see, we have the second best chance, or kind of the first best chance, of getting that number one pick, because us, the Hornets, and the Bulls all have a 14% chance at that number one pick. The Mavericks and the Kings not too far behind. So let's hop right into this. I'm going to go through it start to finish, like I said. No cuts, nothing in between. Let's do it. All right, so the prediction for the first lottery pick at 16 is the Sixers, and the Sixers get that pick. Okay, so 16 goes to the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's see who gets 15. The Trailblazers are predicted to have that pick, and it does go to Portland. So Portland will have the 15th pick. All right, let's see who gets 14. It's predicted to be the Hawks. They had a 0.5% chance at number one, and the Hawks get the 14th pick. Okay, so no big surprises yet. The Heat are predicted at 13, a 1% chance at the top pick. They get 13. All right, so still right in order with the way it's supposed to be. Pistons predicted at 12, 1.4% chance at number one, and they get 12. All right. Sonics, 2% chance at the top pick, are predicted at 11. They get 11. Now, I know that a lot of it's probably going to seem like the predictions are right. These update as the lottery goes on. So the Clippers, with a 2.9% chance of getting the first pick, they get 10th as they were predicted. The 9th is predicted to be the Wizards. They have a 4.4% chance at the top pick, but they will get number 9. All right, updated prediction. 5.9% chance that the Grizzlies get the top pick. This one will go to the Jazz at 8. All right, so it doesn't go to the Grizzlies. So that is the first surprise of the lottery. Number 8 goes to the Jazz instead of the Grizzlies. Number 7 is predicted to be the Sixers, and the Sixers get that pick. All right. So it looks like the Grizzlies have moved pretty far up here. Kings are predicted to be at number 6 here with a 10.4% chance at the top pick, and the Kings get the 6th pick. So we're in the top 5. We know that we're in the top 5 now. That's good news. Mavericks predicted at 5 with a 12.4% chance, and the Bulls, who were one of the 3 teams that had the best chance at number 1, they get number 5. All right, so we're top 4. They predict us to be number 4. Let's see what happens. It's the Hornets. All right, so we're top 3. All right, so the Hornets, they get the 4th pick. So that means that us, the Grizzlies, and one other team, I don't remember exactly who it is, are in the top 3 at this point. I think it's, it doesn't matter. We're at 3rd. and we get the third pick. Okay, cool. So we were predicted to have the third pick. We got the third pick. It's looking like it's going to be either the Grizzlies or who else is it? I don't remember. Or the Mavericks. That's right. Okay, so the Mavericks moved up as well, and they get it. So that means that the Vancouver Grizzlies, who just moved to Vancouver, who had a 6% chance at that number 1 overall pick, get it. So there was definitely some surprises in this one. There were 3 teams that had the best odds of landing that number 1 pick. The Badgers, the Hornets, and the Bulls, and we ended up at 3, 4, and 5. The Grizzlies and the Mavericks ended up at 1 and 2. The Mavericks had a very good chance to land right where they did, actually, because they had a 12.4% chance at the top pick. But the Grizzlies, who were slated to pick somewhere around 8th, I believe, end up with the number 1 overall pick. They moved up very far in this draft. So as you guys can see, we end up with the number 3 overall pick after picking 2nd overall last year. And we also had that 22nd overall pick that conveys from the Indiana Pacers. We were hoping it would be a lottery pick. We were really hoping they would miss the playoffs, but they made it in. It is what it is. But as you can see, your top 3 teams here, the Vancouver Grizzlies, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Louisville Badgers. You got the Seattle Sonics in their first year in Seattle that will pick 11th overall. That still should be a pretty good pick. This is a pretty stacked draft class. So realistically, I mean, this entire lottery should really be filled with really good players. But overall, the only pick that matters is number 3, boys, and we've got it, okay? We've got the number 3 pick in this draft. Of course, we were hoping to get, 1, maybe 2, whatever. 3 is okay. I'm okay with number 3. We're predicted at one point to have number 4. Ended up going to the Charlotte Hornets. And like I said earlier, despite the fact that us, the Hornets and the Bulls, had the best chance at number 1, none of us got it. None of us even got number 2. But we got the best out of the 3 teams with the number 3 overall pick. So now that we know we got the 3rd pick overall, that brings us to the staff signing period. And honestly, right now, I think we are going to give Fred Hoiberg that last year of his contract. Chris Gent is doing just fine. If we end up changing Fred Hoiberg next season, which is very possible, we'll also probably change our assistant coach as well. But those are decisions for the future and not for the present. The one change I did want to make, however, is I do want to change our trainer. Okay, so we're going to fire Ted Stewart. And we're going to take a look and see if we can bring in a better trainer, because I believe that'll give us possibly at least more training camps. So I think we're going to try to bring in Glenn Howard. He's an A- right now with a B- potential. I mean, it's kind of weird, but whatever. He's got 8 offers already because he's the 2nd best trainer on the board. So I'm going to have to bump up this salary, get the interest meter up there a little bit if we want to grab this guy. So we'll put it to $370 for 3 years. The years don't matter as much to him. All right, he'll inform us of his decision in the coming days. And all right, Glenn Howard has accepted our offer. So now that we're beyond the staff signing, that brings us to the NBA Draft Combine. Best sprint time went to Cassius Stanley. The best lane agility time went to Nico Mannion, and our boy Bryant Perkins was tied with him. The best vertical leap went to Cassius Stanley and MJ Walker. Brian Perkins was also up there along with Cole Anthony and, of course, Mac McClung. The best bench press went to Vernon Carey Jr. by a mile. The best standing 15-foot jump shot was Johnny Uzang and DeSander Brooklyn. The best moving 15-foot jump shot went to Isaiah Stewart, Cassius Stanley, and Cole Anthony. The best standing college three-pointer went to Isaiah Stewart and our boy Fishy Tuss. Best moving college three-pointer went to Jalen Lecque. The best standing NBA three-pointer went to Anthony Edwards. And the best moving NBA three-pointer went to Cole Anthony, with Anthony Edwards not far behind him. Now let's move on to the pre-draft workouts. And since we have the number 3 overall pick, we've got 12 invites. We're going to use them on all of the best guys. So the guys that I brought in for personal workouts are as follows: Precious Achiuwa, Denny, Vernon Carey Jr., Anthony Edwards, Josh Green, Johnny Uzang, Scotty Lewis, Jaden McDaniels, Isaiah Stewart, Trendon Watford, Khalil Whitney, and James Wiseman in alphabetical order. And I really have to say, Anthony Edwards has been the main guy that we've been targeting in this draft, but check out James Wiseman. He was toward the top of the list in the bench press and toward the top of the list in almost all of the shooting categories, including the ones that surprised me the most, which were the standing NBA three-pointer and the moving NBA three-pointer. So having another big man that could space the floor along with Jaren Jackson is a super, super appealing prospect. However, there's a near 0% chance that he'll still be on the board at number 3 when it becomes our pick. And I gotta say, the 3 guys that I'm most interested in right now are obviously Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, or Isaiah Stewart. All 3 of these guys extremely, extremely talented. This is another one of those drafts where we have a high enough pick where I don't know if we can really go wrong, but I would really, really love to land Anthony Edwards with that first pick in the first round that we have. As far as the 22nd overall pick that we have from the Pacers, it's still kind of up in the air, but I'm really hoping that a guy like Trendon Watford, or if we're really lucky, a guy like Vernon Carey Jr. could fall to us with that pick. Again, like I mentioned before, it's kind of doubtful that either of these guys would be there. There are a few guys that I have in mind as contingency plans just in case. So now that our pre-draft workouts are over, you guys already know what comes next. It's the biggest time of the year for teams like us who spend the majority of the season losing games, and all of that pain that we go through during the regular season is all to position ourselves for this right here, the NBA draft. And as if you guys couldn't already guess, I am extremely, extremely excited to see who we end up getting with that number 3 pick. You guys already know who we want. You already know who I want. Anthony Edwards is the guy that we have our eye on, but I would not be one bit upset with a guy like Jaden McDaniels being on the team, and I certainly wouldn't be upset if a guy like James Wiseman was to fall to us at number 3, which I think is extremely, extremely doubtful. But hey, crazier things have happened in the draft. However, I think James Wiseman is like the 2019 version of Zion, where he's almost a guaranteed lock to go number 1 overall. And despite the fact that the Vancouver Grizzlies do have Jonas Valanciunas, it would be really, really hard to imagine them passing up Wiseman with that number 1 overall pick, and it would be almost impossible to see the Mavericks pass him up if the Grizzlies decided to go a different route. The Mavericks, just the idea of being able to put Porzingis at the 4 and Wiseman at the 5, with Luka Doncic already the floor general, I think that team would be extremely, extremely competitive. But again, like I said already, I think it's already a foregone conclusion. I think he's going to be in Vancouver. But we will find out all of this and more as we end the offseason in next episode. We're going to go through the NBA draft. We're going to go through free agency. We're going to look at our player progressions. And then we are going to make our way into the 2020-2021 regular season, all in the next episode. To say I'm excited for that would be a ridiculous understatement. So I cannot wait to see you guys back for that one, because I know you're just as excited as I am. Also, real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to my man, The Infamous NY. I'm going to leave his channel link down in the description. A lot of the faces that you see in this series, the ones that I create just with the 2K tools, there's been quite a few of them that have been based off of his design, so a big shout out to him. Also, a shout out to Shwahoda for his work on RJ Barrett, Monkey Man Mods for his work on some of the 2019 prospects, and then an extremely special shout out to 2 guys for their exclusive work specifically for this series, and that would be Enter the Void and Mr. Mnishow 2K. Those 2 guys are 100% straight up artists, and I wouldn't have nearly as much fun as I do with this series if it wasn't for the fact that a lot of my players look extremely realistic, like they've been scanned, so huge shout out to those guys for that. But anyway, like I said, NBA Draft 2020 coming in episode 19. Cannot wait to see you guys back for that one. So until then, I'll see you guys next time.